Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the lecture on tribal identity and politics. This lecture is part of a paper on media and margins. In this lecture, we would discuss the intricacies of tribal identity and the associated politics behind it. We will also learn about the issues of identity among the tribal population in India, where the main focus of the narrative would be identity at large. A case study of a tribal group is incorporated as well in order to grasp the real issues related to tribal identity and politics. Introduction. Indian society is known for its diverse and varied culture. As such, differences have been the hallmark of Indian society. These differences are not brought about overnight, rather, it was the result of various long and historical processes. The major marks of differentiation are caste, religion, region, and language. Into these categories of disparity, the category of tribe was a later inclusion during the colonial regime. Though the term tribe usually means a group of people having a common dialect and similar culture, usually isolated from the mainstream culture, but this definition holds no ground as with the changing human society. The above stated definition stereotypes as well as freezes the identity of a community as tribe. The question that arises here is what actually the tribal population is, on what criterion one is defined and identified as a tribal group. There are various questions that could be raised on the validation and identification of a tribal group. But in order to substantiate the current lecture, a few of the definition of tribe given by different scholars, sources and associations at different times are taken into account. Some of those are as follows. Merriam-Webster's dictionary defines tribe as a social group comprising numerous families, clans, or generations together with slaves, dependents, or adopted strangers. In the concise Dictionary of Social and Cultural Anthropology, a tribe is defined as a social group sharing common descent and a common language, territory, and culture. The term usually designates a historical community or one in a non-Western context and with possibly derogatory overtones. In modern anthropology, it is mostly used to describe political formations rather than ethnic ones. Ralph Linton, an American cultural anthropologist, outlines tribe as, in the simplest form, the tribe is a group of bands occupying contiguous territories and having a feeling of unity deriving from numerous similarities in culture, frequent friendly contacts, and a certain community of interest. More or less elaborate superstructures of formal tribal organization may be erected upon this basic condition, but the tribal groups can exist and function without them. Dan Majumdar, an Indian anthropologist, defines tribe as a social group with territorial affiliation, endogamous with no specialization of functions, ruled by tribal officials, hereditary or otherwise, united in language or dialect, recognizing social distance with other tribes or caste. While according to Oxford Dictionary, the term tribe means a social division in a traditional society consisting of families or communities linked by social, economy, religious, or blood ties with a common culture and dialect, typically having a recognized leader. G.S. Guri, Indian professor of sociology, stated that tribes were backward Hindus as they were cut off from the mainstream Indian population and were placed at the lower rank of evolutionary ladder. The main criterion of defining tribes are few common parameters, namely the geographical isolation, having their own dialect. Adding to it, few scholars made no distinction between a caste and a tribe in the definition of tribe. Guri called these tribes as backward Hindus. A closer observation of the above definitions shows that there is wide contestation and debate among academicians and scholars over the definition of the term tribe. A concrete definition that places the groups of population under the umbrella term of tribe as tribal groups becomes a difficult task. But some few features that seems to be highlighted in the above stated definition, which could be set as the characteristics of tribe, are as follows. A tribe is a social group. They should have a common dialect and a culture. Association of tribal society with customary laws and practices. The usage of the term tribe to designate people who differ from those in the mainstream civilization had been viewed as a colonial construction. Although the category of tribe has been treated as a colonial construction, the underlying meaning and image of it as a category could not be associated with being as colonial construction. Moreover, in this regard, the discipline of anthropology from its conception has been engaged in the study of tribal societies. The colonial administration were entrusted with the task of studying different groups of people who were not Western, and they consider such groups as others. These viewpoints of colonial regime were reflected in the bulk of books that came out in the form of ethnography and monographs. The book by John Bataille titled Other Cultures, Aims, Methods and Achievements in Social Anthropology shows how the engagement of the British with non-Western society, which gave rise to the discipline of anthropology, and also title of the book reflects the notion of tribes among Western societies. Though other disciplines apart from anthropology have contributed to tribal study, but anthropologists were the ones who ascribed different terms to designate a tribe, and they were Janajati, Adivasi, ethnic groups, indigenous groups, to name a few. Here, the understanding of tribe would be explained in the context of India. Furthermore, to add to it, one has to bring in different aspects of understanding the term tribe, and some of these aspects, such as the discourse of usage of the term tribe, its history of conception, the politics behind its conception, the question of identity. The discourse of the term tribe, there is a still ongoing debate on the question that where was the term tribe first conceptualized. A section of scholars believe that it was the British administration which conceptualized the term, but there are others who disregard it and believe that the conceptual meaning of tribe was present in India long before the British came to India. Census and religion. To understand the origin of the term tribe, one has to look at the census, which played an important role in identifying as well as classifying people. The first proper All India census was taken in the year 1881 under the British administration. It was in this census report where the term forest tribe was used. The term forest tribe was not used directly to designate tribal communities. Rather, it was placed under the broader category of agricultural and pastoral castes. While in the subsequent censuses, a similar trend of ascribing identity markers were seen where clumping of tribal communities under a broader group was in vogue. The census report of 1901 described tribes as group who practice animism, while the census in 1921 used the category hill and forest tribes, and in census 1931 the term primitive tribe was used. Although consecutive census surveys attempted to arrive at a definitive criterion for tribes, they were often either ambiguous or inadequate. In the writings of the British, a tribe is referred to as a group claiming descent from a common ancestors or one which lived in primitive and barbarous conditions. TK Woman articles cultural change among the tribes of Northeast India states that in British Indian census, the use of variable categories such as enemies, naturalists, primitive, etc. were used to indicate tribal religious affiliations. While the first census after India got independence from the clutches of the British regime abolished such categories, but it sorted tribal groups in the categories of major religion, Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, and Buddhism, thus nullifying the existentiality of tribal religious affiliations. Herein, the clubbing of tribal groups under major religious group denied the rights of the tribes to practice their own religion. The author also states that change in the nomenclature of a religious community does not bring about change in their religious belief and rituals. But it cannot be denied that changes in nomenclature do bring in change in the attitude of tribal groups towards their own religious affiliation. The administrative term scheduled tribe, after India got independence from the clutches of the British regime, the trend to typecast the tribal group remained in same format. The tribal groups now were clubbed under the administrative term the scheduled tribe. In Article 366 Clause 25, scheduled tribe is defined and the President of India holds the ultimate authority to club any tribal group as scheduled tribe. There are few criteria that are followed for specification of a community as scheduled tribes, and few of such specification are indication of primitive traits, distinctive culture, geographical isolation, shyness of contact with the community at large, and backwardness. These criteria were not spelled out in the Constitution, but post-independence these have become well established in subsequent years. It is also evident that the Indian Constitution is following the same category as the British to identify tribes. The question of identity among the tribals. In the 2001 census, the total tribal population of the country was only 8.2% of the total population. The latest census report of 2011 shows that the tribal population is only 8.6%. This figure indicates that the tribal population of this country is relatively low, so the tribal identity becomes significant. The Anthropological Survey of India undertook a project titled People of India Project, which identified 461 tribal population in India. They also enumerated the figure as 6,75,80,800 persons, constituting 8.8% of the total population. V. Kaka, in his article titled Politics of Language, Religion and Identity, Tribes India, pens down the initial discourse of the tribal identity. He states that the initial discourse of the tribal identity can be divided into two categories. In the first category, tribal communities were integrated as a citizen of a nation state, while in the other category, tribes were tried to assimilate into the Hindu fold. Though the term and tribal identity have been forced from outside upon them, but this identity have been internalized by the community. The identity of belonging to a tribal group now provide the marginalized people self-esteem and pride. The notion of identity. In this section of the lecture, we would learn about identity and how identity plays a crucial role in today's time. An identity is established and created through a series of differences that have been recognized socially. If they do not coexist as differences, one would not exist as in its distinctiveness and solidity. While Carlson states that we must look at identity that construct the other, a splitting between that which one is and that which is other. The idea that identities are never fixed within themselves, nor do they emerge from nowhere. They are constructed primarily in and through relations and are always involved in a process of transiting. The definition of identity, according to Concise Dictionary of Social and Cultural Anthropology, is the combination of characteristics that collectively demarcates an individual or group both to themselves and others. Anthropologists are interested not only in the futures that people may feel give them a valid identity as individuals, but also in the collective identities of family, ethnicity, and nation to which they subscribe. Identities are basically fluid in nature, and as they are constructed and created, so in contemporary times, various groups are coming up to demand their distinct identity character. The question of identity has brought in various tribal identity movements. Some of the reasons behind such uprising are the special provisions that are provided to the tribal groups by the state, the fear of losing their identity and culture and thereby losing their agency, the recognition and equal treatment of the state towards such marginalized group, the fear of being assimilated with other groups. Sumit Guha, in his book titled States, Tribes, Castes, a historical re-exploration in comparative perspective, points out that it was anthropological and sociological studies that built up the notion of tribe. Colonial anthropology in the 19th century and early 20th century played an important role in shaping the tribe as a category in India. After the foundation of the Asiatic Society of Bengal in 1784, British administrators, missionaries, travelers, and anthropologists collected data on tribal and rural groups and wrote about the life and culture, identity and development. For the socio-economy and overall development of the tribal people, special provisions and safeguards have been provided in the Constitution of India, and some initiatives have also been taken by the government of India, including Tribal Subplan Strategy. The Tribal Subplan Strategy was aimed for the rapid socio-economic development of the tribal people. The funds provided under the tribal subplan of the state have to be at least equal in proportion to the ST population of each state or union territories. Although the agenda taken up by state was to ensure active participation and equal rights to the marginalized people, but this in a way created a rift among the tribe and the non-tribes, and also among tribal groups as well. Jawaharlal Nehru, the first PM of India, formulated the following 5 principles for a policy to be pursued in order to integrate the tribal population within the nation pan-development trend. 1. Tribals should be developed along the lines of their own terms, and the imposition of alien values should be avoided and should be encouraged in every way their own tradition, arts and culture. 2. The rights of tribals over land and forest should be respected. 3. Tribals should be trained as to build team of their own people to do the work of administration and development. Introduction of too many outsiders into tribal territory should be avoided. 4. Tribal areas should not be over-administered or overwhelmed with a multiplicity of schemes. Rather, work should be done in accordance to their social and cultural institution. 5th, results should be judged not by statistic or the amount of money spent, but by the human character that is evolved. This approach of integration, unlike the other approaches of isolation and assimilation undertook by the state, provided opportunities for the development of the community. Case study: the masses and their struggle for identity. In order to understand the intricacies of tribal identity politics, assertion of identity claims leading to intra-tribal and inter-tribal conflict with present-day context, a case study is provided in this section of the lecture. The tribal group is from Northeast India, where the issue of ethnic identities are on rise, so as to discuss the fallacies of the government and the people. Damasas are an ethnic group residing in the northeastern part of the Indian subcontinent. These ethnic groups belong to Tibeto-Burman linguistic and ethnic community. The term Damasas literally means the children or descendants of a big river, meaning the Brahmaputra. Here, D means water, Ma means big, and Shah means children. Dipali Danda says that the literal meaning of the word Damasa is river folk. The Damasas are the most dominant ethnic group in Dama Hasao. Apart from Dama Hasao district in Assam, the members of this ethnic group are found in the neighboring states of Nagaland, Ongli and Dimapur. Damasas were not identified as a separate tribal group post-independence. Rather, they were treated as a sub-tribe of the Kachori tribe. In the 1961 census, where the Damasas were finally classified as a separate tribe, this recognition did not come overnight. The people from this tribal group had to fight a long way in order to attain recognition. The present Autonomous District Council was inaugurated on 19 April 1952, which was previously known as North Kashmir District Council. The Marshals have demanded for a separate state, but their plea was not fulfilled. Rather, North Kashmir Hills were renamed recently as Damahaso. The Damahaso District Council comes under the provision of the 6th Schedule of the Constitution of India. This recognition of the Damasas had brought unrest in the district as the minor tribal group wanted further bifurcation of the district. Damasas are classified as scheduled hill tribes. However, the section of the people living in the plains districts of Barak Valley and Nagon district are designated by the state of Assam as scheduled tribes plains. They are officially known as Burma Kachuris and Hujai Kachuris respectively rather than Damasa. Only those living in the hill district of Damahaso, formerly North Kashmir Hills and Karbi Anglong are categorized as Damasa. On the other hand, the Damasas living in Nagaland are called Kachuris in official terms. While Damasas distinguish themselves into 4 main groups, the Zosa of Dimapur district of Nagaland, the Bruza living in Karbi Anglong and Nagon district of Assam, Haurasa of the Kashmir district refer to themselves as Burmans or Burmans, and Husasa Damasa of the Dimohosa district. This inter-tribe differentiation highlights that one need to relook at the connotation of the broader term Damasas. Bithai rightly argues that the problem in India was that emphasis was placed on identification of tribes rather than that of defining them through scientific or theoretical considerations. In this regard, colonial anthropology in the 19th century and early 20th century played an important role in shaping the tribe as a category in India. Currently, the district faces numerous bands and strikes called by various underground militant groups as well as other indigenous students groups demanding for the bifurcation of the district, as many tribal groups residing in the Damahaso district were not recognized by the state. Conclusion. Let us try to sum up what we have learned in this lecture. The issues of tribes and tribal identity have been discussed in length. We also learned about varied viewpoints put forward by various researchers and scholars. If one relooks at the history of tribal identity genesis and course of recent development, the government policy for the socio-economic development can also be taken into account for the contemporary tribal identity formation. In this regard, census played a crucial role in stereotyping and localizing the identity of tribal population. Moreover, clubbing one tribal group with another robs agencies of any tribal group where one identity gets sidelined. Earlier, the distinction of castes and tribes were not clear. Rather, they were clubbed as the same. With times, this discourse of identifying tribe as a caste was discarded. Bithai states that even the best ethnographer confused tribe with caste. This in a way shows that the approach taken up by various scholars such as C.S. Corey was not appropriate to understand tribe in general. Thus, it can be concluded that it was indeed a tough job for both scholars and researchers to conceptualize a definite definition of tribe. Please refer to e-text of the lecture for more details. For further study of the subjects, do refer to the extended readings list and attempt all the questions given in the end. Thank you.